Hey guys, welcome to the Kane audio vlog. It's Friday, it's time for another Ask Me Anything. That means the usual rules apply. Comment anything you want below this video and I'll get back to you in next week's video answering your questions. Before I get on to last week's questions, house admin. Don't think there is any. It's actually now Thursday. I'm recording this because I've got a wedding to go to tomorrow, so I'm filming it a day early. So if any of you have just posted your question in the last 24 hours, then go back and copy and paste it below this video so I can get to it next week, because I won't have got it in the last 24 hours. I don't think there are many this week, so let's just crack on. I think it's going to be pretty quick, he says, but let's get on with it. Right, Reality on X production. Hi Dom, you said you mix 5% saturation on mix. So what kind of saturation is that? It's the built-in saturation on the Mixbus 32C. That's really the only saturation I ever use. I don't think I ever bother with any other. No. So the saturation on Mixbus is just a really nice warm tube sounding saturation, and having built my own, it's not here anymore, I don't know where it is actually, thinking about it. So I did make my own valve preamps that I used to use for saturation in my mix and master chain, and so I always liked that sort of, that, you know, the warm analog kind of valve saturation sound when it was heavily driven. And yeah, never really got on with anything else. But then I found Harrison Mixbus 32C, and that's got the drive saturation built into the bus channels, and yeah, they sound brilliant, and I only need to dial them in very gently. It's, you know, it's one of those things where you really just, it's not an audible thing, and this is, I think, one of the biggest problems people often face with saturation, is that, I mean, you can use it as an effect plug-in and, you know, really saturate something and you know, change the sound and use it like it was a guitar pedal on a synth or whatever. That's absolutely fine. But if you're putting it on a bus or master channel or anything like that, you need to be very, very subtle, because all you're really wanting to do is just ever so slightly send the hottest signals to crisp a bit at the top and the very lows, and that's really all you want to be doing. You don't want it to, you know, you don't want somebody to listen to your track and go, it sounds saturated, because if somebody can tell you've used a saturator, you've probably used too much, and that's kind of the whole point of saturation. And I think that's kind of an old school way of looking at it from, you know, the old mastering with tubes. You know, you didn't use valves and tubes to make things distort. That wasn't the point of it. It was to allow you to run a slightly hotter signal, and usually it was like a preamp stage anyway. So yeah, it just happened to have a little bit of saturation, and it just happened to be quite pleasing when it was done. So that's kind of my tip on saturation, I suppose. Do you put it on all instruments, bass, drums, synths? So in Mixbus I have my buses. I've got drums bus, bass bus, effects, synths, vocals, and other. I tend to use it a little bit on drums, and sometimes on bass if I feel that the bass is a bit too clean and raw. Never on effects. Maybe on synths if if I feel it needs something stylistically, then I might overkill it on synths. If I think something wants that really gritty sound, but only if it's musically gritty anyway. So for my own tracks, I don't do musically gritty stuff, so I don't think I would ever saturate my own synths because I like it crisp and clean. Drums I will a little bit. I think that's probably the most part, really. The most I'll use it is probably on drums. Yeah. What hardware VST do you use for saturation? So I've just said Mixbus, and there we go, Canon. High five. Andrew Hollis, Canon again, I think. Yes, high five. I think I've probably said it before. I kind of run out of words. I'm only looking at this square space where I have my camera, microphone, another microphone, monitors, lighting. That's really all I'm looking at, so I'm kind of struggling to find words. I have the Audient ID4 and really like it. It's a 2-channel input. Oh, there we go, yeah, because we were looking at this last week. A 5¼ inch DI input at the front of the device. Okay. In my humble opinion, it has enough power to drive the DT770 250 ohms without an amplifier. I think it's probably the same headphone amp on these, and I would agree, although I'd kind of like them to go a bit louder, but I don't know if the headphones go. I don't know if that's just me wanting headphones louder or what, but yeah, it is definitely enough to power them, really. Also, it has a mode that makes the volume knob a scroll wheel, which is pretty useful. Yeah, that does sound really useful, actually, to be honest. I might... Well, has the 22 got that? Is there a new version, maybe? I don't know. But I kind of feel like I always need more ins and outs. I would also recommend the support, as I had an issue with it and they repaired it without any quibble at all. Yeah, actually, now you mention it, was it Audient? Yeah, I think the first time I got something from Audient, there was an issue with something. It wasn't their fault either, from what I remember. It was a setup issue. And that got replaced really quickly. So yeah, so I definitely recommend Audient for the guys who work there, and I haven't spoken to them for a very long time, but last time I did, they were all lovely people. So yeah, that's good to hear. As for concept, I prefer albums that change the pace of tracks. One of the best themed electronic albums to do this is A Collection of Short Stories by Reload, one of Mark Pritchard's early projects. Okay, I don't think I've heard that. No, I don't think so. So I'll look into that. But yeah, so yeah, going back to album stuff, that is absolutely something I want to do, and I want it to... I think it'll need to change pace a few times over throughout an album, and I don't want to do an album that is just, 128 BPM from start to finish, because I think, well, that's a DJ set, and at the same time I want to be able to perform the album live-ish or semi-live, whatever you want to call it these days, and so I need to also maybe be careful with that, because obviously, if I was booked in a big nightclub and doing a 2 AM set, I don't really want to walk in and do a 75 BPM film piece. So I guess I'll have to maybe do versions of. I don't know how it's going to work, but you know what? I don't really care yet. I just want to make sure that whatever the album is, I want it to be interesting, and I want it to be different to something I've done before. I don't really care if it's not different to what other people have done. I don't know. Does it matter? Probably not. But I want it to be different to whatever I've done in the past. And in fact, I'm kind of dropping clues of this in my EPs as well. So the EP coming out which, by the way, I think is now hard red penned in for June 7th. I saw something come through from Spotify saying it was registered or something, which I need to look into. That reminds me. Yeah, so talking about BPMs and stuff, so the third track in this forthcoming EP will be a different BPM. It's outside of the normal sort of club range. So yeah, so I'm kind of leading that way, and hopefully by the time I've then got my third or maybe fourth EP, then the album won't be quite so, you know, it's not going to be completely out there, I guess. Who knows? Finally, I think you should title your long player album, ? Do you know what? I would like to, but I will leave that to Deadmau5. I think he has a similar sense of humour and nonchalance for certain things in life, like titles, and I don't really care much for titles of music and whatever it is. It's the music that's the good bit, not the name. But unfortunately for me, he got there first with all of that sort of stuff. So as much as I'd love to call my album, it would save me a lot of pain. But I think if I did that now, I think people would just think I'm copying Deadmau5, and that's definitely not what I want to be seen as. So yeah. Zombo, watch a movie. Nah, fam, I'm going to watch an AMA that's an hour long. Well, I'm pretty sure this one won't be an hour long. Love your videos, Dom. When I listen to Structures EP, it still gives me goosebumps. Have a good weekend. Thank you very much. Canon, high five. Cheers. I'm glad people are still liking the Structures EP. That means a lot to me, genuinely. So yeah. Ricky John, Cannon, high five. Hi Dom, hope you enjoy Amsterdam. Looking forward to see what happens with the podcast. Me too. I do like Amsterdam. It's kind of an odd city. I think I would have probably enjoyed it more when I was sort of 18 or early 20s or whatever, but I like it for different reasons now. Yeah, so that's not till October AD. Yeah, it's October, so plenty of time yet. Saying that, we're in May already. So realistically, so going back to this podcast thing, May, June with release, July with festivals, August. Yeah, so I might be able to get the first couple of episodes of the podcast recorded before AD. It'd be quite nice to be able to have a continuation throughout that. Also, actually, maybe here's a question for everyone watching this video. Maybe I should have put this in house admin at the beginning. But where I'm struggling with the podcast planning now is, I mean, I kind of know the answer of what people want, but let's be realistic. Would you rather, so I'm thinking it might be best, because I follow a lot of podcasts myself, and for example, one podcast that I love, the Adam Buxton podcast, really only makes sense if you're British and into weird stand-up comedy, so it's not a music one. But the Adam Buxton podcast, he obviously kind of records them as and when he wants and releases them as and when he wants, and that's fine. But when I do regular long journeys, I need to know that the podcast is there and available next week for me with a new episode. So I tend to get almost annoyed at that because it's too irregular. So I'm trying to work out how it would be best to do it. So I'm thinking maybe if I do seasons and do 10 episodes per season, and then just do one a week or one a fortnight maybe, because I think the reality is I, at best, I'll probably only be able to film one a fortnight, one a month, probably realistically. So I don't want to be making everybody wait a month for me to film one, and then if one gets cancelled or rescheduled for the next month, then there's a 2-month gap, and I don't really want that for you guys. I'd rather you guys go season 1, 10 episodes, 10 weeks in a row. Is it okay to do every 2 weeks or every 1 week, or I don't know, what's the best? Or do I just release all 10 in one go? I don't think that's probably the way to do it, but there we go. That's an aside. Sorry, Ricky, I was still in your question. Keeping this short and sweet, unlike me. But as you asked, in relation to trying to create certain spaces, I meant more synthesizing, I guess, with impulse responses, delay phases, filters, etc. Oh, right. This is to do with, you mentioned underwater, and I went on about underwater microphones, and you mentioned forests and stuff, and now I'm getting what you're talking about. Right, so you're trying to recreate using things like reverb and filters the feeling of being in a forest rather than going out and actually recording a forest. Okay, so in which case for the underwater thing, kind of tricky, I guess. Again, depending on whether it's moving water or not, that you might want to use some sort of white noise ish stuff. Basically bandpass filter for underwater. Bandpass, maybe low pass, actually, I don't know. Yeah, never really thought about recreating that, to be honest. It always helps if you have visuals to go with it. In fact, GoPro did a trailer. It'll be on YouTube because I used it as a reference for something else about 1 million times. It was the GoPro Hero 4 trailer. It must have been around 2011, 2012-ish, 2012, I think, something like that. Have a look on YouTube. And it was like this sort of French kind of funky dance track in the background, and you'll notice the visual is the camera shot, and I think the guy dives off a rock and goes underwater, and as he goes underwater somebody low pass filters the music, and then as the camera comes out of water again, low pass filter comes off. That I thought was a good representation, but I guess to really make something truly underwater sounding, you probably need underwater sound effects in there as well, i.e. microphones knocking things and the bubbles bubbling and stuff like that. But yeah, there we go. Mostly it relates to short sections or elements in tracks. Yeah, so okay, well, if it's like a, say, a 1 bar fill in a track, then low pass filter, maybe some bubble type noises. Yeah, if you're bound to be able to get some underwater recordings of the bubble noises, and if you can retime that so that the bubbles maybe are in sync with a hi-hat or a drum fill or a snare fill or whatever it is, then that could be quite cool. Yeah, probably less interesting than you imagine, no, but have given me more to think about Mike's field recording, so thanks, you're welcome. Dan C, thanks for doing this, Dom, keep it up. Would love to hear your thoughts on the Audi's LCDX, since I'm planning to buy a new set of headphones. Well, good for you. Also Canon, high five. I'm aware of the Audi's LCDX. I'm pretty sure it was Sound on Sound who gave them an amazing review. They are headphones that are definitely out of my budget. I don't think I could justify spending that much on a pair of headphones unless I had everything else in the world that I already wanted. However, if you can afford those headphones, great, go for it. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on them, actually. I haven't tried them, but I've definitely heard good things. I can't remember who it was. It was someone I was talking to not so long ago had bought some and was raving about them. Can't remember who it was now. Yeah, but definitely I did definitely read about them on Sound. Yeah, very, very nice. If anyone's watching this and you want to drool over some headphones that you most likely can't afford, then the Audi's website has some really nice headphones, so go check them out. There we go. Finn Fighter, Canon, high five. Thanks for the answers, Dom. Rod Marconi, Canon, high five. That, my friends, is it for this week. Ooh, a nice crisp 20 minutes beats last week's 1 hour 10 minutes. Although actually I really enjoy doing those long ones. Right, if you have made it this far into the episode, then you don't deserve as much of a medal as you would have done last week. I'll say that much. I'm going to say comment the word Amazon. That's a new one, I think, unless we've probably had that before as well, but whatever, who cares. Yeah, comment the word Amazon to let me know, and you get a high five in next week's. I think that is everything I need to mention this week. Yes. Yeah, so I will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Cheers. Bye.